My name is Sabine Mercer, and the last thing my sister said to me before my father threw me out was, honestly, she's embarrassing. The clients can see it. She didn't lower her voice. She didn't have to. That was 14 years ago. I was 22 semesters shy of finishing my architecture degree, standing in the hallway outside my father's home office in Phoenix with a stack of his dry cleaning I'd just brought up from the car. The door was open 2 inches. My father was on speakerphone with Gerald Tate, their anchor investor, Old Arizona Money, the kind that builds wings of hospitals and gets airport terminals named after them. My father's voice was the smooth version, the one reserved for people who could end him with a phone call. The thing about Sabine, he said, is that the ADHD diagnosis is one thing. We can manage perception, but she freezes in front of people, stutters. You saw it at the Chandler presentation. Gerald, I need a face on this brand that photographs clean and speaks clean. Her sister is that. Sabine is not. I stood there with his dry cleaning still in my hands. My sister appeared from the living room. She'd heard it too. Or maybe she'd been listening from the beginning. She looked at me, and something crossed her face that wasn't quite a smirk. It was worse than a smirk. It was indifference. Like I was furniture she'd already decided to replace. Honestly, she's embarrassing, she said, loud enough for me to hear, not loud enough to interrupt the call. The clients can see it. My father stepped out of his office. He pulled the door shut behind him. He looked at the dry cleaning in my hands, then at my face, and his expression didn't change. You heard enough, he said. I'm not going to explain myself. I need you out of this house tonight. I said his name. He walked back into his office. My mother was at the kitchen island when I came downstairs with my bags. She had a glass of wine she wasn't drinking, her hand wrapped around it like it was the only solid thing in the room. She looked at my suitcase. She looked at my face. She set down the glass and opened her mouth. Nothing came out. She was still standing there when I pulled out of the driveway at 2 a.m. August in Phoenix. The air hitting my face was like opening an oven door. I had $300 from my bank account, my laptop, 2 boxes of drafting supplies, and a car that rattled over 70 miles per hour. The kind of exit nobody writes about. Not a dramatic door slam, not a shouting match, just a driveway getting smaller in the rearview mirror until I turned the corner and couldn't see it anymore. My phone buzzed before I hit the freeway. My aunt. She lived alone in Tucson, 60 miles south, had never married, had taught high school art for 22 years, and had always been the one person in my family who talked to me like I was actually in the room. She got straight to the point. I already made up the couch. Drive safe. Text me when you hit the Maricopa County line so I know you're not on the side of the road. I didn't cry until I heard her say that. I ugly cried from the 202 all the way to the I-10 interchange while the radio played something I don't remember and the heat distorted the highway lights into orange smears ahead of me. My aunt opened her apartment door before I knocked. She'd waited up. She didn't ask what happened. She already knew enough. She made eggs and strong coffee at 3 a.m. like it was a completely normal thing to do and said exactly one thing about my father. He's always needed someone to be less than him. Don't let it be you anymore. I stayed 3 weeks. On the morning I left, she pushed an envelope across her kitchen table. $1,800. Everything she had that month after bills. You are not staying here, she said, before I could argue. Not because I don't want you. Because your father still has reach in this family, and if he finds out I'm sheltering you, he will make it his personal mission to make my life difficult. He's done it before. So you go somewhere he doesn't have reach. She looked at me steadily. And you build something so he has to see it from wherever he's standing. then you come back. I took the money. I took I-10 west to I-5 north and kept driving until the desert turned to mountains, turned to rain. Portland, Oregon. I'd never been there. I didn't know anyone there. I had a printout of 3 affordable sublets and exactly $2,100 to my name, not counting the car. I got a job waiting tables that first week. Then a second job doing CAD drafting for a small residential firm on a freelance basis, $12 an hour, cash, because I didn't have a degree yet and the owner, to his credit, didn't ask about it as long as I could draft. I finished my degree online over the next 2 years, one painful semester at a time, fitting coursework around double shifts and a studio apartment with a mold problem I solved with a fan and a bottle of bleach. The ADHD was real. My father hadn't been wrong about the diagnosis. But there are things he got wrong, and the biggest one is that a diagnosis is a ceiling. I found a therapist at a community health clinic that charged on a sliding scale and actually knew what she was talking about. I learned how I worked. I learned that the stutter got worse when I was scared, and that the less scared I became, the less it showed up. By year 3 in Portland, it only surfaced when I hadn't slept or when I was angrier than I wanted to let on. The design work absorbed me in a way nothing else ever had. I'd grown up inside my father's world, dinner conversations about zoning variances and square footage, and what clients wanted to feel when they walked into a lobby. I understood, maybe more than he'd ever given me credit for, how to read a space. Not just what it looked like, but what it felt like to move through it. How light changes a room, how ceiling height changes your breathing. I started pitching small boutique hotels on sustainable interior overhauls. My first commission paid $4,000 and took 4 months. The second paid $14,000 and took 6 weeks. I got faster. I got better. By 2020, I had a 2-person studio and a client list I would never have imagined when I was crying on the I-10 exit ramp. By 2022, the studio had 8 people and a commission from a Seattle-based hotel group that put us in front of a national audience for the first time. We called the firm Meridian Interior Architecture. A meridian is an imaginary line, the kind that divides a map cleanly into before and after. It felt right. My aunt got a check every month from an account my father didn't know existed. She never asked me to stop. She never cashed the first 3. Then she started cashing them and calling to tell me what she spent them on. A new easel, a weekend in Santa Fe, a donation to the ceramics program at her school. Her messages arrived like clockwork, short, direct, no wasted words. Heard from a cousin that your sister is engaged. Thought you should know before you heard it somewhere else. Call me when you can. That was November 2023. I called her the next morning. She gave me the details the same way she told me everything. Matter of fact, no editorial softening. My sister was marrying into the Ashby family. Old Scottsdale real estate money. The engagement announcement had landed in Arizona Folio and the Phoenix Business Journal on the same day, 2 pages apart. My father was quoted in both. He's been developing the Saguaro Grand for 3 years, my aunt said. New luxury hotel in North Scottsdale. His biggest project. The Ashbys are co-investing $8 million. The engagement is, I think it's personal and I think it's a business consolidation at the same time. They're not mutually exclusive in that family, as you know. I knew the Saguaro Grand. I knew it because 2 months earlier, Meridian had submitted a bid for the interior architecture contract. A hotel at scope, that budget category, was exactly the kind of project that could define a firm's next decade. We'd spent 6 weeks on the proposal. It was thorough. It was the best work we'd ever put on paper. We'd submitted it under the firm name, Standard Practice, since 2 of my senior architects had more name recognition in hospitality circles than I did at the time. The request for proposals had come through a project management firm, standard blind bid process. No family name in the RFP header, just an LLC designation on the project documents. I had no idea the project belonged to my father. I found out 3 weeks after my aunt's call when I received an email from the project coordinator, a man named Alden Park, who had been managing the hotel development for 2 years, informing Meridian that we had been selected as the lead interior architecture firm for the Saguaro Grand. I read that email 4 times. Then I opened a new tab and pulled up the LLC registration. The managing principal was listed as my father. I sat with that for a long time. Then I called my aunt. "I know," she said before I finished explaining. I could hear the smile in her voice. "I figured it out last week. I didn't say anything because I wanted you to win the bid on your own merits before I introduced that particular complication." "He doesn't know it's my firm," I said. "He does not," she said. "The project kickoff presentation. Are you going in person?" The kickoff was in 6 weeks. My sister's engagement party, the official public celebration, at the Saguaro Grand Ballroom, was scheduled for the evening before. "Yes," I said, "I'm going." "Good," she said. "Show up like someone who never needed his permission." I spent 5 weeks working on the Saguaro Grand presentation, like it was the only project in the world. I flew into Phoenix Sky Harbor on a Friday afternoon in early March. The desert smelled like creosote after rain. I'd forgotten that smell. Alden Park had arranged a dinner with the development team that evening. He'd also mentioned the engagement party. As one of the invited project vendors, I was on the guest list as a courtesy. That is how I walked into the Saguaro Grand Ballroom at 7 on a Friday evening in a blazer I had designed myself. Cream linen, clean lines, a single detail at the lapel, the Meridian wordmark, hand-embroidered in ivory thread on ivory fabric, invisible until the light caught it. The ballroom was everything my father's taste has always produced. Expensive, controlled, relentlessly tasteful. Crystal fixtures, white orchids in tall vessels. A bar that cost more per linear foot than most people's monthly rent. Waitstaff moving through the crowd in black like a choreography he'd approved. My sister was near the center of the room. She wore something pale gold that fit like it had been made for no one else. And she was laughing at something her fiancé had said, her hand resting on his arm, both of them radiating the particular ease of people who have never had to calculate a grocery budget or pick between the electric bill and a dental appointment. I walked toward them. My sister saw me first. I watched the laughter leave her face. It didn't happen slowly. It was sudden. Like a circuit breaking, she stared at me, and her mouth stayed open slightly, and for a moment she looked exactly as she had at 22, before she had learned to smooth everything into effortlessness. "Hi," I said. I kept my voice even. "Congratulations, it's a beautiful event." Her fiancé looked between us, the easy smile still on his face, but his eyes sharpening. "Do you two know each other?" My sister couldn't answer. My father appeared from a cluster of guests near the bar. He was mid-sentence when his gaze crossed the room and landed on me. He stopped speaking. The man beside him looked confused and then followed my father's stare and looked more confused. My father's face went gray. My mother was 3 feet behind him. She had a champagne flute in each hand. She saw me, and both glasses tipped in her grip. She caught them, barely, champagne sheeting over her fingers and splashing onto the marble floor. The sound of it cut through the conversation nearby, sharp and sudden, and every head in the radius turned. I didn't move. I stood in the middle of the room in my cream linen blazer and let them look. Alden Park materialized at my elbow. He'd been across the room when I walked in. I watched him make the slow calculation. The shift in the room, the frozen family, my father's color. "You're the Mercer in Meridian," he said quietly, not a question. "Yes," I said. He absorbed that. "He doesn't know." "No." He nodded once and stepped slightly to the side. Not away from me, but clearly not removing himself from my orbit either. My father crossed the room. His voice when he reached me was low and very controlled. "Sabine." "Hello," I said. "What are you doing here?" "I'm the lead interior architect on the Saguaro Grand," I said. "Alden selected Meridian 6 weeks ago. I have the project kickoff presentation tomorrow morning." My father stared at me. "Your project manager ran a blind bid process," I said. "The proposal came in under the firm name. I wasn't sure you'd recognize it." Behind him, my sister had recovered enough to reach for her fiancé's arm. She was saying something low and urgent. He listened, and then, without making a production of it, he excused himself and walked over to me. He was direct about it. She never mentioned a sister. "I know," I said. "How long have you been gone?" 14 years. He looked at the floor for a moment. When he looked up, something behind his expression had shifted into a register I recognized as a person doing actual math. "My family co-invested $8 million in this project," he said. "We did full due diligence on the development group. I'm realizing there are things the due diligence didn't cover. Family dynamics don't show up in financial filings," I said. "No," he agreed, "but unauthorized fund transfers do. Our financial team has been trying to reconcile discrepancies in the project accounts for 2 weeks. We put it down to poor bookkeeping." He paused. "I don't think it's poor bookkeeping." I said nothing. "I'm not telling you this because I expect anything from you," he said. "I'm telling you because you deserve to know what you're walking into tomorrow." He went back inside. I found my phone and typed one message to my aunt. "I'm here, it's okay, go to sleep." Her reply came in under a minute. "I was absolutely not sleeping. Tell me everything tomorrow." The morning kickoff began at 9. The conference room was glass-walled on 3 sides, the Sonoran Desert pale and immense in the early light, the mountains going blue at the horizon. Alden Park opened the meeting. My father sat at the head of the table. I presented every slide myself. Not because my team couldn't. 2 of my architects present better than I do under normal circumstances. But I had decided somewhere over Northern California on the flight down that I was going to be the one standing in that room. No proxy, no buffer. My father did not speak during the presentation. He looked at the slides, he looked at me, he looked at the slides again. When the room cleared afterward, he waited. "You built this," he said, not the smooth voice, not the investor voice, just a statement. "Yes," I said. He was quiet for a long moment. "I owe you." "You don't owe me anything," I said. "Meridian won this project on merit. That's the only thing I need from you professionally." He looked at me for a long time. Something crossed his face that I didn't have a name for. I was surprised to find that I didn't feel the satisfaction I'd spent years imagining. What I felt was closer to tired. The specific tiredness of carrying something heavy for a very long time and finally setting it down on a table and just leaving it there. By noon, the Ashby family had engaged a financial forensics firm. The co-investment was frozen pending review. My father spent the afternoon behind closed doors with 2 attorneys. My sister called my cell at 3:30. I answered because I decided to. She didn't say hello, she said, "Did you plan all of this?" "I planned to win the bid," I said. "The rest happened on its own." "He's going to lose everything." "He might," I said. "That's between him and the people he borrowed money from." "You're not going to do anything." "I didn't come here to hurt him," I said. "I came here to design a hotel." She hung up. That evening I drove to Tucson. My aunt had made a pot of pozole and set 2 bowls on the table before I'd gotten my coat off. We sat across from each other the way we had 14 years ago at 3 in the morning, except this time I wasn't crying. "How do you feel?" she asked. I thought about it honestly. "Like myself," I said. She smiled, not triumphant, not sentimental, just satisfied, the way a teacher looks when a student finally figures out the thing that took them years to teach. The financial review took 11 weeks. The forensics firm found what my sister's fiancé had suspected: $2.3 million in project funds routed through a secondary LLC that had never been disclosed to the co-investors. My father's attorney called it a structural misallocation. The Ashby family's attorney called it fraud and filed civil charges in April. The co-investment was formally withdrawn in May. Without it, the project financing collapsed. My father's development company filed for Chapter 11 reorganization in June. The announcement ran in the Phoenix Business Journal on a Thursday. By Friday afternoon, 2 additional creditors had joined the civil action. My sister's engagement was quietly called off before any of the legal news went public. Her fiancé had been the one to flag the account discrepancies to his family's financial team. He was also, I learned later, the one who first provided documentation to the forensics firm. He sent me a brief email in July. "I hope the Saguaro Grande finds a way forward," he wrote. "The design deserves to be built." I wrote back, "So do I." A different investment group acquired the project out of Chapter 11. They asked Meridian to stay on. We said yes. The hotel is scheduled to open in 2027. My mother called me in August. First time I'd heard her voice in 14 years. She sounded older in a way that had nothing to do with age, like someone who had been sitting alone in a quiet room for a very long time, rehearsing something. "I should have said something," she told me. That night, "I should have said something." "Yes," I said, "you should have." We stayed on the phone for a while. I didn't forgive her on that call. I didn't tell her I wouldn't either. I just listened, and she talked. And somewhere in the middle of it, I looked out the window at the Portland rain coming down on the street below, and thought about the drive north from Phoenix. 14 years ago. The August heat, the rattling car, the highway lights dissolving into orange in the dark ahead of me. At the end of the call, she said, "I'm proud of what you built." "I know," I said. I hung up and sat there for a few minutes. My aunt called 10 minutes later. "Your mother called me too," she said. "Are you okay?" "Yeah," I said, "I think so." "Good." A pause. "The pozole is better when I make it with red chiles instead of green. I've been doing it wrong for 20 years. I just figured that out." I laughed. Out loud, genuinely, the kind of laugh that takes you by surprise from somewhere deeper than you expected. "Come down soon," she said. "I want to show you what I'm painting." I still have the $1,800 she gave me the morning I left Tucson. It's in a fireproof metal box in my apartment. Same rubber band she put around it. Same envelope with her handwriting on the front. I've never spent a single dollar of it. I don't keep it because I need the money. I keep it because it's the only physical proof that exists of the thing that actually saved me. Not a business plan, not a degree, not a contract. Just someone who saw me clearly when I couldn't see myself, and decided that was enough to bet on. That's the only inheritance worth keeping. Everything else I left on the highway going north.